Hey, everybody, Max Boltman here alongside Jesse Granger for another episode of the Athletic Hockey Show. And Jesse is here. It feels like it's been building up to these Olympics for so long. And now we're down Laz because he's in Milan and he can't record on Olympic grounds. So the two of us going to do the first half of the Athletic Hockey Show Olympic preview today. We'll give you 6 teams. Other half will run on Tuesday. I'm ready to go. Are you?
Yeah, it feels real. We've been writing stories about possible line combinations for not just like a year. It's been 10 years. We've been writing line combination stories. So to see the reports from practice that these are how they're actually taking line rushes, like I know we haven't gotten to games yet, but it already feels real to me just seeing the actual line combinations after a decade of projecting them.
100%, and seeing the guys in the Olympic kits, the polo kits, right? And
Yep.
they're always like super loud pieces, and you're like, holy smokes! But that's how you know it's showtime. And one of the reasons that we've been talking about these Olympics so much over the last several years is because this is a golden era of American hockey, and it feels like the closest to level footing that Team USA has been on with Canada, certainly of my lifetime. And I think that makes for one of the founding storylines of these Olympics. We don't know for sure that they're going to see each other, but I think everyone will be disappointed if we don't at least get a look at that, whether it's in the gold medal game in some kind of knockout round. So let's start with Team USA, and certainly one of the two most scrutinized roster constructions in this tournament.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, all these other countries that don't have more than enough NHL players to fill the roster out, it makes it a lot easier on them. Whereas Canada and the US, there are going to be superstars not on the team. So it's hard to fault them for leaving superstars off when they have too many to fit them on the roster. But yeah, I mean, and like even looking at the lines that we're seeing, and who knows if they'll stick, who knows how much they'll change them through groups. But I'm sure we're going to pick apart not only who the players are, but who they're playing with.
Yes, and then we don't have that 100% certain of how this is going to look. We have reported lines from one day of practice, but it's pretty interesting. And I think the first thing that jumped out to me in the reported lines was that Jack Hughes was not in the top 6 for Team USA. He was on the third line alongside Dylan Larkin and Tage Thompson, or I guess what I'm assuming is the third line. There's plenty of offense on that line, plenty of speed, some size. Jack Hughes obviously is the playmaker of that line. But are you surprised that he wasn't in the top 6? He played a lot with Austin Matthews at the Four Nations.
A little bit surprised, but then when you see that third line, like you said, that is an offensive zone start line if he ends up playing with those two. So I think it actually fits him nicely because it may take some of the defensive responsibility off of him. Like maybe he doesn't. I mean, although if you're playing Canada, it doesn't really matter what line you're going against. You need to be defensively responsible. But I think it maybe allows him to be more offensive and not worry about that. Whereas like the line that they've got lined up, which by the way, I'll talk about it more, but I absolutely adore this line with Eichel and the Kachucks. They can handle the tougher minutes and then give Tage Thompson and Jack Hughes and Larkin those offensive zone shifts and just tell them, go get us a goal. I don't mind that. Although I will say like, it is weird talking about it as a third line, just because what we're used to like in the NHL, but it's a very offensive leaning line, which I think that's his fit.
Are you saying that Team USA didn't just load up its roster with no offense in the bottom? I'm getting conflicting reports on this.
Yeah, well, there's that kid that scores 3 goals every night for Montreal that'll be sitting at home. So
I know. And I like Cole Caulfield, Jason Robertson, Alex DeBrincat. Like they're some of the premium goal scorers in the NHL this season could have been on this American roster. And certainly that's going to be a big storyline as we go through these games. Anytime Team USA doesn't score enough, certainly if they lose a game, that's the first place everyone is going to be talking about is the guys that they did not bring. But you saw, for those of you with us on YouTube, you saw the roster there on the screen a second ago. Like, what stands out to you as the strength, Jesse, of this American team? I mean, obviously there's 3 horses in goal that I think every nation, maybe except for Sweden at this tournament, would be clamoring to steal one of these guys off the team. But what's the strength of this roster for you?
yeah, I love the goalies and I love the blue line. I think that the US now, I think it's kind of a different game when you talk about playing against Canada or when you talk about playing against most of the other countries. I think most of the other countries, they will be able to outscore them. But I do think that if they end up meeting Canada, whenever that happens, I think that this team is going to try to win a 2-1 game. I think that they are built to play really sound, structured defense. I mean, you look at the pairs that we saw today, and it's like there's not really a weakness. I mean, the third pair that they had listed is Zach Werenski and Noah Hannafin. Those are two excellent defensemen, and they can handle themselves in their own end. And then you put whether it's Hellebuck, Ottinger, Swayman, they're all studs. And I don't know how much we want to get into who they should play. I think it's super interesting the way those goalies have trended this season, what they're going to end up doing with it. But regardless, you're going to have a superstar in net, and you're going to have a really good defensive core. The forwards are talented too, but to me, that this team can win games 2-1. That's what I think when I look at that roster.
I think it's the way it was built, right? And so you look on the top line, and yeah, you see at least the way they practice today with Jake Gensel, Austin Matthews, and Matt Boldy. I think a lot of people would have pegged this those two wingers as the third line wingers, Gensel and Boldy, coming into this tournament. Putting them with Matthews, I think, signals exactly what you're talking about, Jesse. Is that they're going to play this game in a way that the first priority is do not give anything up and create when it presents itself to you. You're not looking to force something. You're not looking to, cheat the zone and get up ice too fast. You are going to play the game from the back up and score when it's there for you.
For sure. And then that second line, I mentioned it earlier. I don't like even the Canadian lines are insane. I don't know if there's a line in the Olympics I love more than Jack Eichel between the Tkachuk brothers. It is such a perfect fit. Personality wise, it's a perfect fit. And I watch Eichel here in Vegas every day. And if you give him a player that can battle in front of the net, he will make them a lot of money. He did it with Ivan Barbashev. Ivan Barbashev is not the most skilled. He doesn't have the best hands in front of the net, but he is a powerful guy who goes to the front of the net and establishes good position there. And Eichel just feeds him goals. Well, Ivan Barbashev is a great player. The Tkachuks are basically the same player, just that much better. I cannot imagine a better fit of two players to play alongside Jack Eichel. He's so good at using his body to buy time and then find those players on the back door, find those players in the front. And those two are going to get to those areas of the ice and dominate there. I am thrilled with that line. I can't wait to see how it works.
They have great chemistry together. We've seen it at All-Star games. We saw it at the Four Nations. Like, the Tkachuks together can make some magic, and it's not just the heavy hitting stuff, right? Matthew can be a great playmaker. Brady around the net causes havoc, and then you have Jack Eichel, who's this great skating, two-way playmaking center. I think that has the potential to be one of the very best lines, should be one of the very best lines at this tournament. And it's one of the few, a lot of the lines we're going to talk about here, to the extent that we will talk about them, are going to be very subject to change, whether it's throughout the tournament or even before the tournament. There's still a couple days left before the games start here. That's a line I feel very confident that we're going to see from Team USA early and throughout the tournament.
For sure. They're built to play tough minutes too, because the Tkachuks can play as deep in the zone as they want. And like you said, Eichel's such a good skater. He's so good defensively. He's going to be the first forward back. You're going to have three guys back always, no matter how. To me, it kind of like takes some pressure off the Tkachuks of like worried about playing above the puck. You can just grind down there in the corners, get as deep behind the goal line as you want, and you don't have to worry about it because Eichel's back there. And like I said, the blue line is excellent. So three guys back at all times. You can be confident playing that line against Nathan McKinnon, against Connor McDavid, against those guys that you have to be so worried about staying above the puck on.
Yeah. At the bottom of the lineup, I think just in the same way we talked about, the guys who aren't here are going to generate a lot of conversation throughout this tournament. So are who is in and who is out of the lineup on a nightly basis. Again, the first reported line look through, it looks like the fourth line was something like Clayton Keller, Vincent Trocheck, and Brock Nelson. Very interesting that means Kyle Connor and JT Miller not on a regular line. You can dress a 13th forward in IAHF hockey, so that doesn't mean that they're scratched. One of them would be based on the reported lines today. How would you deploy this? I think Nelson has to be in it. He's your true fourth line guy. He has the total versatility. But from there, because Nelson can play center, you have all your other options on the table there.
Yeah, I don't mind how it is a little bit considering the guys they brought. Like I said, I'll sit here and complain that Robertson and Caulfield aren't on the team, but considering the lineup they've got, I like that line. And I like the idea of having Kyle Connor as your extra defenseman. So like in the NHL, we're so used to having 12-6. They're probably going to go 13-7. Most teams will in this tournament because you've got those two extra spots. I like the idea of having Kyle Connor available if we need goals. Like if we get up if we take a lead in the game, play Brock Nelson as much as you possibly can. Play that defense and like play defensive hockey. If we fall behind, we've got a guy who can shoot as good as anyone on the planet sitting there ready to be thrown on whatever line we need. Like you don't have to play him on the fourth. You can play him up with Austin Matthews. You can play him with who? It's almost like a designated hitter in baseball. Like I think Kyle Connor fits that role and could be a good guy to just have there who's not going to play a ton of minutes for you unless you absolutely need goals. Then throw him out there and let him go.
And it's a big difference from the Four Nations where like Connor was scratched in the gold medal game. I'm sure they would have loved as that game progressed to have Kyle Connor to go to. the Olympic rule is more conducive to that. On the blue line, I don't think there's any surprises here, except maybe one. Jake Sanderson was not on one of the three top like regular pairs from the way that they skated based on the reports out of Milan today. That shocked me. I think he's one of the six best defensemen in the world, let alone one of the six best on Team USA. He's an all-around player. It's a guy who I think you got to find a way to get 18 to 20 minutes a night at these Olympics. But there's, again, just kind of an embarrassment of riches, and the roles are going to dictate a lot of this.
Yeah, I totally agree with you that he's one of the top six best. It's curious to me, and like I kind of talked about Eichel because I see him here every day. I see Hanifin every day. I'm a little surprised they're playing Hanifin on his offside over someone like Sanderson. Like, and I know they don't have enough of that handed stick, but it's like I was a little surprised to see Hanifin on his offside and Sanderson down there as maybe a scratch, maybe a seventh defenseman.
I would probably put Sanderson there too. When I think of the D that play well on their offhand, it's a lot of the premium skating guys. And Hanifin's a very good skater, don't get me wrong. But Sanderson, I would say, is one of the elite skating defensemen in the NHL. Those guys are the ones who I think are best able to compensate being on their offhand. But it's good. And this is USA for me has the best blue line in the tournament. And that goes back to what you said at the very beginning, being able to win these games 2-1. The goaltending is excellent. I think the blue line as a whole, I struggle to see a team in this tournament. You know, Canada has very good players. Sweden has a very good blue line. When you look at what Team USA has with Werenski, with Hughes, with Slavin, who's maybe the best pure defensive defenseman, certainly one of the top 5 defensive defensemen in the league. Brock Faber is an excellent two-way defenseman. Up and down the lineup, it's aces.
What did you think about them playing McAvoy up with Hughes? Well, not playing, but skating in practice. We got to be careful. They could change these, but I think a lot of people expected Quinn Hughes to be with Faber just because they play together in Minnesota. That's not what they chose to do. Hughes and McAvoy were Faber and Slavin were awesome. Were you surprised to see them split up the two wild defensemen?
No, not totally. I think Hughes and McAvoy together, like that's kind of your classic top pair, your dynamic offensive guy, and McAvoy certainly has offense, but he's more of a defensive and certainly a two-way player. So and minute-eating horses. Faber can do that too, but McAvoy just a little more seasoned in that role. If I was going to swap McAvoy for anyone, it would be Sanderson, I think, because then you get the two of them together, and I think Sanderson in a very similar kind of impact to McAvoy. Yeah. But we'll see these things evolve throughout the tournament. But I do think like when you were doing any mock-up of Team USA, you talked about we've been doing this for years. The last few years, every time I've done one, it's been Hughes McAvoy at the top. So I think it's along those lines. You talked about some debate in the crease though, about who you think should start these games for Team USA. I think Hellebuck's going to be the default option, but it hasn't been quite the level of Connor Hellebuck, MVP level dominance that we've seen in the last couple. Who would be the best challenger for you right now?
Yeah, I just did a thing where I wrote a story, heat check on all the Olympic goalies, and I went and looked at like the recent form, last 5 games since January 1st, how all these goalies, there's 21 of them that played in the NHL that'll be playing in the Olympics, and obviously the 3 for the US. It's super interesting because Hellebuck's having an off year now. It's still pretty good. It's when I say off year, it's by Connor Hellebuck's incredibly lofty standards. He had a knee surgery. Things aren't going well in Winnipeg, and since he's come back from that surgery, he hasn't played at an elite level. I think he's been fine, but he hasn't been at an elite level. To me, the fact that they lost at 4 Nations, and we're not putting that on Hellebuck at all, but Binnington made the saves in overtime and he didn't. And then you combine it with the fact that he's having a down year with a knee surgery involved in it. It was there for the taking for Jake Oettinger, and he just hasn't played great either. I mean, he's won 6 straight for the Stars, but the numbers aren't good. It's below a .900 save percentage. He has looked, again, kind of like Hellebuck, fine. He hasn't been a problem for the Dallas Stars, but he hasn't made it so obvious. Like that was an opportunity for Jake Oettinger to make it so obvious. I am the starting goalie for the U.S. If he was leading the Vezina conversation right now, he'd be the guy because of what's happened with Hellebuck. The guy who's done that actually is Jeremy Swayman. He's been phenomenal for Boston. The Bruins give up more expected goals per 60 than any team in the league, and Swayman's the biggest reason that they're in playoff position right now. He has been excellent. Recently, his last stretch has been excellent. I don't know if he can jump from being the third guy who wasn't even really considered to play a game at 4 Nations to suddenly being the starter. I will say this summer, he was the goalie for the U.S. in the World Championships. He got a shutout in the gold medal game. Can't do much better than that. And now he's been incredible this season. I think that I would probably let Hellebuck play the first games, but I think the leash has to be short. Like, I don't like, it's not like you're going to get lit up in the group stage considering all the teams are playing. But if you're not absolutely confident that Hellebuck is locked in, you've got Jeremy Swayman, who's one of the best goalies in the world, who is locked in right now. Like, he is in peak form. So I think you can turn to him. I think that'll surprise people. I think most people would say Ottinger's probably number 2. If it were me, I think I'd put Swayman in there before Ottinger, just because he's on fire right now.
That kind of brings up a big picture concern I have with Team USA. And it isn't just in goal. It's true of Hellebuck and Ottinger across this lineup. And maybe not so much with the defenders, but up front too, there's plenty of guys here for as hyped as this Team USA group is, deservedly so. It's the most talented roster USA's ever put together. A lot of those key players are not playing at the peak of their game right now. And some of that's probably injury related. You know, both Tkachuks have missed time this year. Jack Hughes has missed a lot of time this year. Austin Matthews, I think, has found it coming into the Olympics, but certainly through the start of the year, did not look himself. Dylan Larkin's had a rockier last couple of months in Detroit. I mean, Team USA is not at their absolute peak where they are leaving the US for Milan. And it's going to be a big thing to watch how quickly, if at all, they're able to find it once they get there, or they are there now.
Yeah, it's a fascinating thought process because honestly, like I just mentioned, Hellebuck's not having his best season. Would it surprise you at all if he shows up and is just they can't score on him? Like he doesn't give up a single goal in the group stage. It wouldn't surprise me at all. Just like some of these guys, Tkachuks. Would it surprise you if the Tkachuks show up and they're just in elite form? Because they've been looking forward to this. Like maybe part of the reason they're not in great form is because they haven't been thinking about those NHL games as much as they normally would. They've been dreaming about what this tournament's going to be. It's super interesting. I don't have a guess as to whether they're going to be able to flip the switch. You look at, we're not breaking down Canada today, but Jordan Binnington is probably the single best example of that. They're counting on him to we're just going to forget what's happened for the last 3 months, and he's just going to be at his best. And I think, to your point, the U.S. is kind of hoping similar things for some of their goal scorers up front. And it wouldn't surprise me if they flip the switch and they're awesome. It also wouldn't surprise me if we leave this tournament saying, man, it just seems like they weren't in the they hit them this tournament came at the wrong time for them.
And the point about Binnington is huge because he seems to hold the key to how so many countries are going to go home and think about these Olympics. Because when I look at Canada's roster on paper, as good as the U.S. has gotten itself to be at this point, I still look at the Canadians as the best roster in this tournament. The only question is at the most important position on the ice, and it's in goal. And they have Logan Thompson, I think, is a more formidable name in that crease. But based on what Binnington has already won them, it's going to be hard for them to not put him in the crease in big games. And he's a tremendous liability in that he could give up 5 on 23 shots. And that Team Canada team can absolutely suppress you to 23 shots in a game. But if Binnington gives up 4 of them even, you're probably going to lose that game.
In a short tournament like this, and I've been writing a big story on the Czech goalies, and I've been talking to some of the Czech players, and one line they keep coming back to is in short tournaments like this, goaltending plays a much bigger role than it does in an 82-game season, than it even does in a 7-game series. All you need is one hot night by the goalie, and it pretty much doesn't matter what the rest of the team does. He can single-handedly win you one, and Binnington can do that, but also the other way is also true. If he gives up a bad goal in the first 5 minutes against now, if he does it against Denmark, okay, we'll McKinnon and McDavid will just score 3 more. But if you do it against America, if you do it against Czechia, all of a sudden things get tight, and it's and Binnington has been giving up those goals for St. Louis. He turns it on in big moments, but also you don't think Jordan Binnington has been wanting to play better for the Blues for the last 3 months, and he can't do it. He's trying to flip the switch in St. Louis. Joel Hofer has outplayed him. He's played more games than him lately. They've been kind of alternating back and forth, but there was a time where they played Hofer several games in a row. His numbers are better. Jordan Binnington wants to be the starting goalie for the Blues, and he hasn't been able to turn it on. So I do question whether he'll be able to turn it on for this tournament, and that is the ultimate equalizer. And as you said, the rest of the countries need that equalizer, because if Canada gets good goaltending, it's probably over.
Yeah. But again, to your point, that's where you go back, and if you're Team USA, you like that you have a bunch of irons in the fire, a bunch of guys who can get as hot as anybody in the league.
Right.
One of the best things they have going for them. Let's take a quick break right there. That's Team USA. We'll come back with the rest of our part 1 of our Olympic preview. All right, we are back with our Olympic preview on the Athletic Hockey Show. We're going to talk about a couple of the other teams that I think are serious medal threats here, Jesse. And one of those is Sweden. I think they should be favored to win their group. It certainly would be them or Finland in that group with Italy and Slovakia. Finland got them in overtime at the Four Nations. They are in international tournaments, best on best. They are always a risk. They can shut you down. They play their style as well as their identity is as defined as any team in this tournament, any country in this tournament. But I do think that the blue line of Sweden is going to be one of the best assets any team has in this tournament. They got an elite number one in Rasmus Dahlin, Gustav Forsling, as good of a shutdown guy as there is in the NHL, and then just really good two-way support guys, Rasmus Andersson, Hampus Lindholm, Philip Broberg. The key to it all might be if Victor Hedman is on top of his game. He hasn't really had a full workload since getting back, coming off of his injury. But if they get anything close to full-on Victor Hedman, they will have one of the very best blue lines in these Olympic Games.
Yeah, I totally agree. This team is built to win low scoring games, the way kind of we talked about the US. It's interesting because their forward group is obviously very talented. It's a bunch of NHLers. It's not quite it's a step below what Canada and the US are putting out there. My question, if Sweden is going to be like, if they're going to win a gold, if they're going to upset some teams and win a gold, is can the defense elevate those forwards? Like we talk about how much a center can elevate a winger. When you've got defensemen who can move the puck as well and confidently as that blue line, because like they're all good defensemen, but what stands out about all of them is how well they transition the puck up the ice. Maybe that can elevate this forward group that we don't see quite on the same level as the others and make them look better. Like if you're getting stretch passes into space with speed all the time, a B level forward all of a sudden looks like an A level forward. Like you can get more out of those forwards because of how well the defensemen pass the puck. And to me, that's the recipe this team's going to need to compete with the best.
Well, and you go back to the Four Nations, and I hate to keep bringing it up, but it's the most recent best on best tournament we have, the best data we have. Erik Karlsson led Sweden in points at the Four Nations, right? And that's a guy whose name I didn't even mention when I was reading off that blue line. He can be a huge difference maker, and he was very good at those games for Sweden. You talk about transition, you talk about stretch passes. Erik Karlsson's one of the first names in the world that I think of when I hear those two things. So I agree. It was tough for them being without Leo Carlsson. He was probably going to be their number one offensive driver, certainly down the middle. Might not have been their leading scorer, but a guy who, with his toolkit, you're going to look to tilt the ice in your favor. He goes down. I think that makes Joel Eriksson Ek suddenly maybe the most important player for Sweden in this tournament. He's going to have a huge role in their top six. Not that different from what he has in Minnesota. Minnesota does not have an elite offensive centerman, and so a lot of it falls to Joel Eriksson Ek to not only produce but also check at the same time. And it's going to be a huge responsibility for him going head to head when they do see USA and Canada.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought him up because to me, he's so different from all the other forwards, right? Like when I look at Sweden's forwards, it's like Nylander, Bratt, Philip Forsberg, Adrian Kempe. It's a bunch of smaller, finesse, skilled guys who, and again, like to the point of like scoring in transition, those are the guys you want those defensemen feeding pucks to, but they don't have the possession dominance. Like they don't have the body to hold on to pucks down low. And Eriksson Ek does all of that. Like he is so different. He's such a different mold of player than the rest of that forward group. So he's going to have to be excellent for them because you do need some of that stuff in a tournament like this. And he's going to be the one to bring it if they get it.
Yeah, and you look at the way that they play him in Minnesota, I think it's going to be a whole lot of the same. You're going to play him with two of your most dynamic players. Maybe William Nylander would make a lot of sense for him. I could see Lucas Raymond fitting well there. Jesper Bratt could fit very well with him. And you're going to hope that he can do the down low stuff. He can take a lot of the defensive responsibility and free it up, create space for those guys and put them in the right position to succeed. Those are going to have to be the drivers as well as Lucas Raymond. Like I think Raymond is the leading Swedish scorer right now going into the Olympics, and he can do it. And he can run your power play. He's not afraid to go down low, even though he has played through some injuries early this year. I'm curious to see what kind of health he looks like he's at. There have been times where he's looked like he's been limited by it in Detroit, less so recently, though. And I think that obviously Bill is at the right time for him into this tournament. I also don't know that these Olympics are going to be as physical as the Four Nations was, and that could bode well for a Sweden team that, the ice size is going to be interesting. That neutral zone, I don't know if you've seen the photos, looks teeny tiny. Like, I don't know how that's only 3 feet. Just to my eye, it looks like such a massive difference. But I think this Sweden team, like that could ramp up the physicality, obviously. But I think in general, the way that IIHF calls games definitely, I think, does help a team that has some smaller skill guys.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I agree that Raymond's probably has to be their driver. I think Philip Forsberg is an under the radar guy who he's not having like a monster season in the NHL, but he's just so good. And that guy, when he scores, it's a highlight reel goal every time. He is built for like, we need a hero. Like it's tied. There's 6 minutes left. Someone just be the hero. Go do the play, make the play all on yourself, create a goal. Philip Forsberg can do that. And he's a guy that isn't maybe talked about as like one of their top players, but I think we could end up leaving this tournament saying, man, I feel like Philip Forsberg was the best player on Team Sweden.
A few guys I'm curious. We talked about Hedman at the very beginning and how he plays coming off the injury, being an X factor. But right there too is, what are you going to see from Elias Petersson, who still has not looked like himself in Vancouver? What are you going to see from Mika Zibanejad, who has had something of an offensive bounce back? Seems like he's going to have a really important role for Team Sweden. What do you think you get out of those two guys in this tournament?
I hate saying this because everyone wants to represent their country, but when you talk to the Swedes and the Finns, it seems to matter a little bit more to them. Like, I think just growing up over there, international hockey is a bigger deal. It's viewed differently. I think you're going to get good. Like, I think you're going to get the most out of those guys that are, and especially the older guys who maybe didn't know if they were ever going to play in an Olympics. Like some of the younger kids that like, this is their first Olympics or like they haven't been sitting on the sideline watching Olympic after Olympic, not being able to participate. These guys, like a guy like Mika Zibanejad, I think there's probably a moment in his career where he thought to himself like, man, I wish I could play for Team Sweden in the Olympics. And that's never going to happen for me. And now suddenly he is. Like, I don't know. This is just narrative. This is the writer in me, the like romanticizing hockey. But I think you're going to get a lot out of those guys, the best they can give.
I buy into that. I think this is a will sport at the end of the day. And if you have the strong will, you have something going for you. And Zibanejad's had a bounce back offensive year. A lot has gone wrong in New York. There's plenty to talk about there. And obviously we skipped over some of it on the USA stuff with JT Miller and Vincent Trocheck. But Zibanejad is going to be a key player for Sweden. I also think it just elevates guys when you're the guy for your team or one of the guys. And I'm not saying Zibanejad is the guy, but they're going to lean on him heavily. And I think that typically brings out the best and especially veteran players. My big question for Sweden is in goal. And it's which of these guys do you start? I don't think it'll be Wallstedt. I think you're looking at either Philip Gustafsson or Jacob Markstrom. Markstrom, the veteran, Gustafsson having a better season. Which direction would you take this in net?
To me, it would be Gustafsson would be my guy to start the tournament. Markstrom has looked good lately. I would say his last few games gave me a little bit of hope. It hasn't been the best season for him in New Jersey. And to me, Markstrom's game is more up and down. He is a big athletic guy who kind of breaks structure and will just be all over the place. And that allows him to make some saves that no other goalie can, because you don't see a big guy that moves the way he does. But he also gets outside of his posts. He kind of will leave open nets because he's out of position, because he's playing it so aggressively when he's not reading the play perfectly. When he's reading it, he's one of the best goalies in the league. But when he gets a little bit off, whereas Gustafsson, I feel like it's flatline. Like you know exactly what you're going to get from the guy. He's so structured. He's so technical. He's so positionally sound. If I were going into this tournament and you told me not even the names, just the style of goalie, I would prefer to have the calm, cool, collected Philip Gustafsson back there. Your team feels good having that guy back there. Whereas Markstrom, some games you're going to feel like they can't score on us. This guy's a brick wall. Other games you're going to feel like, man, you're not going to be as confident in him back there. So just stylistically and form, Gustafsson's in better form. I would go with him.
Yeah. Let's go to a team that I think is going to be really ride or die with their goaltender, and that's Czechia. Lukas Dostal, been one of the breakout stars over the last year and a half in the NHL. You think he's ready to have this kind of spotlight on him at the Olympics, this kind of pressure? He's going to need to be a huge force for Czechia.
I do. I think he's ready. I don't know if he's quite 98 Dominik Hasek and Nagano ready, but I think he's the closest thing Czechia's had since then. And I think he's built for this kind of hockey. You look at Anaheim. I talked earlier about how Boston has given up a ton of expected goals and how Swayman's done it. Well, the only team that's given up more high danger chances than Boston is Anaheim. So Dostal is very used to facing an onslaught. Like that's basically like Anaheim is much improved this year. It's pretty much all offensively. They aren't playing great defense. Dostal is used to facing 40 high danger, 40 shots and half of them are high danger. He's used to that. The game against Colorado a couple weeks ago where Colorado finally got one by him, I think, in the final minute of regulation. The Ducks ended up winning 2-1 in overtime. That was the single best performance any goalie has had in the NHL this season was Dostal. I think he stopped 40 of 41, and they were absolute grade A chances by the Colorado Avalanche. That's what you're going to need. If you're going to upset the U.S. or you're going to upset Canada, you're going to cause some havoc with Sweden and Finland. If you're Czechia, you need a goalie who can single-handedly stand on his head and win you a game, and Dostal has the play reading ability. He's got the skating. He's such a great skater, and he's explosive laterally. I think he's got everything you need to be able to steal a game. Karel Vejmelka is having a heck of a season, and if he doesn't get to play a bunch of games in this tournament, it's a shame. He's currently tied with Andrei Vasilevsky for the most wins in the NHL this season. Utah is playing him like he is a true workhorse goalie, like Hellebuck, Vasilevsky. There are only a handful of goalies in the world that you can treat that way. And Utah is deploying him like he's one of those guys, and he's playing great. He's got the most goal saves above expected since January 1st of any goalie in the that's playing in the Olympics. So he is hot too. And if Dostal falters a little bit, they've got a great second option to turn to. I may be more confident in their goaltending than I am the U.S. goaltending. Like, I think if you told me what country are you most confident that they will get great goaltending in the Olympics, I think it's Czechia. Now, they're overmatched. They have two defensemen. We're going to talk about it. They have two defensemen that play in the NHL, so they're going to give up a ton of chances. Will their goaltending stats end up being the best? I don't know. It's going to depend on how the games play out, but I am so confident in Dostal and Vejmelka and their ability to help this team upset some teams.
I love that take. Let's get the Czech roster up on the screen here, and we'll talk about what they have going on in front of those guys. Like you said, the blue line, it's Jan Ruda, it's Filip Hronek, it's Radko Gudas. You probably don't know too many of those names. Michael Kempny, you probably some familiarity with. Up front, it is more NHL guys, and one of the best. David Pastrnak is going to give them a goal-scoring threat every single game. They will have someone who is capable of recording a hat trick, and it's going to be tough against the very top teams in the tournament. Martin Necas, same deal, dynamic guys. Pavel Zacha gives him a nice two-way guy down the middle. Tomas Hertl, some nice heaviness and offense in front of the net. Dominic Kubalik, don't forget, he's a pretty smooth scorer there, and I know he's not in the NHL this season, but it hasn't been that long since he's played against a lot of these guys. So comparable, I would say, to me, to like a Germany roster, with the difference being how much better the goaltending is for the Czechs. But I would say when we did the player poll for The Athletic, I believe the Czechs were the team that most players felt was likely to upset a favorite at this tournament.
We've been talking about how Sweden and the U.S. want to play tight checking, low event defensive games. To me, Czechia is the exact opposite. If I'm Czechia, it's like, let's open it up. Let's see if our goalie can make a couple saves more than your goalie can with Pastrnak and Hertl and Necas. Like, we've got the firepower up front. We've got the goaltending that is specifically built to stop like fast type of offense. Let's play a back and forth game if I'm Czechia, and just hope that our stars up front can score one more than yours can. I can't wait to see this Czechia team. It is by far the team I'm the most excited to see as we get these Olympics. I just love that high end talent. Necas has been so good for Colorado. He's right there with Pastrnak in terms of like how much you've got a game plan for that guy up front. If they've got some serious firepower up there.
They do. And I think, actually, I compare them to Germany. They're a little deeper in terms of the NHL talent up front than Germany is too. I just more mean like with the stars up front, like when you have Draisaitl and Stützle and obviously Moritz Seider on D, like that's a pretty compelling core group. There is a little more NHL depth to the Czech team. And this is a team I think Canada and Czechia in pool play is probably going to be the best game of pool play.
It's going to be a lot of fun. That's the opening game. And what a moment if you're Czechia to kind of show everyone that you're here for real, like whether you win that game, whether you just play them to as hard as you can. It's a chance right off the bat for everyone to realize that they are a contender for the medals.
Good enough for this team, Czechia? Good enough to medal for you?
They were my pick for bronze, and part of it's going to matter like who you end up playing in the knockout stage. Like if you end up playing Canada or the USA first, maybe that hurts you in terms of your ability to get there bracket wise. But I pick Czechia over Sweden and Finland in terms of just ranking them. Who do I think is the best teams because of that firepower and because of the confidence I have in their goalies.
Going back to the goalie take, so I would have said Sweden was the next best goalie situation after the U.S. But am I too bullish on that? Am I giving too much credit to Markstrom's reputation in saying that?
I just think that like Gustafsson and Wallstedt and Markstrom are like, when you just look at them, how good are these guys? I think it's comparable to And Vladar, we haven't mentioned Vladar. He's
Yeah.
the third goalie for Czechia. He's having the best season of his career in Philadelphia. I think he's probably been the best player on the Flyers team. They've kind of fallen off the playoff race, but he's really been holding him in it. I just like the form. To me, the two hottest goalies, like I said for this story, I took the 21 goalies that play in the NHL. I looked at their form. The two hottest are Karel Vejmelka and Lukas Dostal. And to be honest, there's a pretty big gap. Swayman is probably the third hottest going in. There's a pretty big gap between those two. Like, they are the clear guys who feel the best about their game. They are so pumped to play for their country, and they just happen to be on a heater right before the tournament. That's part of it, is like not just skill, but like the way that they are playing going into this tournament.
Yeah. All right, let's take a quick break right there. We'll come back with a few dark horses as part one of our Olympic preview continues. All right, we're back. Let's get right back at it, Jesse, with a team that you could argue if they should have been more toward the Sweden and Czechia tier of teams here, as opposed to some of the I guess we're going to call them more dark horses here. But Switzerland, they're a team that can sneak up on you for sure. They have name recognition. They've got Nico Hischier, Timo Meier, Kevin Fiala up front, Nino Niederreiter. The blue line could be a strength with Roman Josi, JJ Moser. Switzerland is a team that I'm not going to call them a medal like favorite by any means, but they're not as far off from Czechia as I think the discourse might lead you to believe.
Yeah, I think they're deeper than Czechia. Like, they don't have like Pasternak and Hurdle and Natchez. Those are like, they don't have a guy that's as good as those guys, I'd argue, but they've got more NHL players on this roster. They've got just a more solid group of forwards. They've got a few guys we didn't even mention. Jonas Siegenthaler on the blue line.
Yep.
The goalies is where it's going to be a question, and Akira Schmid's playing great right now for Vegas. I get to see him every day, but that's obviously a weakness when you compare them to Sweden and Czechia. But this team is deep. If they can play together, like they can roll lines at you. It's not one line with NHL guys and then a bunch of guys from the Swiss league. Like they've got legitimate depth, and if they show up and play together and play a good system, they can give anyone problems.
Yeah, and they're going to lean on a guy like Fiala, I think, for scoring. But I do think when you look at their blue line plus the defensive centers they have, Hischier, Suter, Siegenthaler, Moser, and Roman Josi, like that gives you the spine of a team that can play you to a rock fight a little bit. They can drag you into some of those 2-1 games we've been talking about.
Seems like a pain in the butt to play against, right? Like that is not a team that you look on your schedule and say, oh, we're going to get some goals in that. Like that's going to be a fun one. That is oh God, we're going to, like you said, rock fight is a good descriptor for the type of games they're going to try to play, and they've got the players to do it.
And I think that could be similar for Latvia as well. I mean, Latvia is another team that some names you'll be familiar with, but I just think like the hockey identity of Team Latvia is hard hockey, and we've seen it at some recent tournaments. I mean, they punch above their weight. This is a proud hockey country. They beat Slovakia at Worlds last year. They played Finland to a 1-goal game. It was only a couple years ago in 2023. They won bronze at the World Championships. They beat the USA and Sweden. Obviously, I know those aren't full best on best rosters that you see at the Worlds, but this is a team you should not be surprised by either if they give somebody a really hard day. I will not put them quite on the level of Switzerland, but I think this is a team that's going to be hard to play against. And some of the names you're going to be familiar with here: Teddy Bluger, Zemgus Girgensons, Ulvis Balinskis, Sandis Vilmanis. I don't know if people remember Edwards Traumix. He had a little run with, he's been over in the AHL in the Bruins organization. Now he's in the Red Wings organization. So I've seen him with Grand Rapids. Big body, scores a lot of goals. And the goaltending for Latvia is probably better than the goaltending for Switzerland. Yeah, Kristers Gudlevskis, who, ghost of Olympics past there. But you're probably between Merzlikins and Shilovs, I would think, here.
Yeah, and they're both having really good seasons. Merzlikins has been a little more up and down. That is the story of Elvis Merzlikins, but he is about as streaky of a goalie as you'll ever find. And right now he's on a hot streak. Like, he has been playing some good hockey for Columbus, and he's got the athleticism. He is the type of goalie who has, like, if you're telling me we see this every international tournament where some team just outshoots the other team by 40 shots and the other goalie just holds them in there. It's like, where are you going to get that performance? Merzlikins is a good bet for that. He is that type of goalie who, it's not like he doesn't just want to win. He wants to be the reason his team won. Like he wants to play the hero. He's a dramatic guy. He's like, the way he plays, his personality, everything about him is put the team on your shoulders and try to do it. Like, now, well, will he succeed? He's a streaky goalie. There's a reason Columbus has moved to Jet Greaves. Like, he is streaky. He's not as consistently good, but when he's good, Man, is he good. He's tough to score on. He's so athletic. That, to me, even though Shilovs is having a great season, and you could argue he's had the better season of the two and maybe put him in, just stylistically, we know we're going to need our goalie to win us a game at some point. I would go with Elvis all day for that, and just hope that he's on his game and has one of those nights where he's the hero, because I think that's kind of in his DNA.
Yeah, the funny thing is, like, Gudlevskis has literally been that guy on the Olympic stage for Latvia
Yep.
before. It's just that was 12 years ago, and now you have these two guys who are in the. Merzlikins had a shutout in his last game before the break against the Devils, so
Yep.
he's certainly in good form coming in. There is a draft notable name here for Latvia too. So for those of you who are fans of an NHL team that's going to be picking in the top 10 or so, you're going to want to know Albert Smits. He's playing for Ukraine. He is a great skating, big body. He can shoot it. He had a point per game at the World Juniors. He was 8th on Corey's most recent list. So that's a name to know too. I mean, if you see him get meaningful minutes against some of these NHL players and hold his own, he could probably boost his draft stock with what he's able to do in Milan. So a name to know there. The last one in our portion of the preview, Jesse, is Denmark, and this is a team that I would qualify definitely as a longer shot. But there are NHL names on this roster: Nikolai Ehlers, Lars Eller. You're gonna, on the back end, it's a little more from the local teams, and whether it's in Austria or Germany. But you're looking at an NHL goalie and Freddie Anderson. It's an uphill battle, but these are not all names that everyone's unfamiliar with.
Yeah, for sure. I don't want to crush them. This is the first team that I will say. The other teams, I can make a case for how they can maybe cause some havoc and upset some teams. I don't think it's going to happen here for Denmark. They've got some guys up front. Ehlers can make some plays. They don't have an NHL defenseman on the roster, and Freddie Anderson is having his worst season in a very long time. He obviously, Brandon Bussey, the breakout in Carolina, he's kind of stolen the starting job, but part of that is Anderson just hasn't looked quite as good. He's 38, so it makes sense that he's slowing down a little bit. He's kind of been avoiding father time, defeating father time, however you want to say it, over the last couple of years. Like last year he was 37, and I thought maybe it's the best he's ever looked. And then all of a sudden this year it hasn't quite been the same. Maybe playing on the international stage. This is another guy like I was talking about with Zibanejad. Like Freddie Anderson probably thought he would never play in the Olympics for Denmark. So maybe he gets that bump and we see the Freddie Anderson of old. But with no NHL defenseman on the roster and an aging goalie who's not playing his best right now, I have a hard time finding a way for this team to upset some of these top countries that are stacked.
This is what we talked about earlier, though, right? With both Ehlers and Lars Eller, like they're going to be so dependent on that. I do think you're going to see the absolute best they have to offer at this tournament, and that's one of the coolest parts of the Olympics. Is everyone knows Nikolai Ehlers, everyone I think I know knows Lars Eller. But you're going to see them in a light that I don't know that you've always looked at them in the NHL. And Ehlers has had more of a high-profile scoring career, but both of them are going to be so key to everything they do. I think you're going to come out of this tournament with a higher opinion of both players, even if Denmark doesn't have a ton of team success.
Yeah, totally. It's going to be fun to watch. And it's like, at the end of the day, look at the Olympic hockey we've been watching the last couple Olympics, and if you compare it to that, this Denmark team is absolutely stacked. So it's like you said, we're going to get to see these players play huge roles and try to play the hero for their country. It's going to be fun.
All right, obviously we have another half of this to go, so we haven't talked about all these teams, but we're not going to be doing the part 2 episode. So I do want to give you a chance to make your picks here, Jesse, before the games begin. Who's your gold, silver, bronze?
Well, on brand as an American and as a goalie, I'm going the U.S. wins the gold because of the goaltending. I'll give Canada silver, and Czechia, as I mentioned earlier, is my bronze pick. Again, because I'm pumped with the goaltending. It's going to be a fun tournament. I could see all three of those being wrong, but that's where I'm going. How about you?
Coming into this year, I expected to be with you. But this the way that all the seasons have gone for all the players involved. I've swung around. I think Canada wins the gold, USA silver. I'll take Sweden to win the bronze, but it's a close one. I think that battle for bronze is going to be almost as interesting as the battle for gold at this point. MVP, best goalie.
So MVP, like I said, I'm picking the U.S. to win the gold, and I'm taking Jack Eichel. I am watching this guy dominate every day here in Vegas. He is playing some of the best hockey of his life. He's on a line that I expect to be phenomenal. He's already rewritten. I mean, you think back to his career, what he was in Buffalo, and he's a talented player, but can you win with him? I think he's going to continue rewriting that with the Cup in Vegas and now a gold medal at the Olympics.
Best goalie?
Best goalie, Lukas Dostal. Like I said, I think if Czechia wins bronze, if I'm right about that, Dostal will win the award for best goalie. So that's kind of they go together. How about you?
It's a similar argument for me. I'll take Gustafsson as the best goalie with Sweden winning the bronze. And MVP, I'm going to go with Nathan McKinnon. I could have gone him. I could have gone McDavid. I think those are going to be the two defining players, the two best players in the world. They're both on Team Canada, but I like McKinnon to be the MVP of this tournament. So that is going to do it for part 1 of our Olympic preview on the Athletic Hockey Show. More coming at you on Tuesday. We'll talk to you soon. Thanks for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe and ring the bell to stay informed and catch new episodes every Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. And in the meantime, you can join our Discord community. We'll see you there.